Hello everyone, trail hunters here. We are on a little special excursion today. We're not hiking, but we are in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and we are at Stones River National Battlefield. There was a major skirmish during the Civil War, the last couple of days of 1862. Major battle was fought here, and it was quite bloody. So we're going to kind of just check things out a little bit. It's supposed to be a lot of paranormal stuff happens here. So I'm going to kind of check that out a little bit. So yeah, here with my daughter, and we're going to check this place out, so come on along. I missed out on a trail, but I decided to use this nasty, dreary day to indulge in a couple of my other interests: history and places with reputations of paranormal activity. What better place to explore both than a battlefield where a brutal campaign took place? This may not be a battle like the size of Gettysburg, but several thousand soldiers spilled blood on the fields of Stones River. I was ready to check things out. Okay, one of the first stops we're going to make is here at the visitor center, where I'm going to pick up a map and maybe a little information guide of all the different little points of interest within the park. It's a pretty crummy day weather-wise, kind of cold, but not overly cold. And here it is, visitor center. I think that they got a little museum or whatever in there, but I know they got a little store. I'm gonna check that out. So yeah, be back. It was small, but this was a typical national park gift shop with a good variety of t-shirts, coffee cups, books, and other trinkets, all Civil War themed. My daughter found a book about General Grant at a good price, so I picked it up for her before we moved on to the small museum. I got the Stones River coffee mug. Okay, so this is a little museum right next door to the store. Give me a little bit of what it was like a little campsite. It was a cool little museum covering all aspects of the Battle of Stones River. There was a fair amount of actual artifacts recovered from the battlefield. There was a small theater showing a video covering the history of the battle, as well as many interactive displays covering a variety of topics of what took place on those final days of 1862 and the first couple of 1863. For a small museum, there was enough in it to keep you occupied for a good hour or so. Recovered from the battlefield. See this kiddo? They found out here on the battlefield.
Wave after wave, the Confederate attacks are repulsed at the anchor point of this new line, a place that earned the name Hell's Half Acre.
There's a little theater showing a film about the battlefield.
Tennessee Infantry, along with Donaldson's brigade, moved to attack
Surgeons use tools like these reproductions to remove shell fragments from the torn bodies of wounded soldiers. That's not good. Hook bayonets may have been used to drag decomposing bodies to burial sites. There's a pile of boots.
Any questions? You good?
Not at the moment. Christian Nix. Headstone marked Nix's original burial site. I guess he was killed in the battle. There's his sword. Union Lieutenant Christian Nix was a German immigrant from the 24th Wisconsin. He died of his wounds soon after the battle. There's the letter to his wife. There. Actual objects recovered from the battlefield. Okay, yeah, so if you come here, check it out. It's got a lot of cool information and some artifacts, and we shall return. Okay, so we're approaching the Stones River National Cemetery. And I believe, though it's got areas from various wars, but I believe a lot of the soldiers who died in the Battle of Stones River are buried here. I guess because during the Civil War, I mean, they didn't wear any kind of, or mostly didn't. So a lot of these graves are just marked with a number, like this one. I'm assuming that those were the soldiers that were not identified. And you got the ones who were. Basically just their name and where they were from if they knew. Like this one here, I got a lot of information on this one. Jasper, son of Elijah and Eliza Quigley. Born 1849, looks like. Died in the U.S. service May 29th, 1865. Well, that wouldn't be that during this battle then. Lincoln. Okay, I'm gonna look around right here a little bit and shall get back to you. Leaving the cemetery, which is located directly across the street from the visitor center, we re-entered the park to begin the park auto tour along the one-way loop around the battlefield. I was hoping the continued threat of rain held off long enough for me to check out each of the stops. It was wet, but so far so good. So it was around this area back in December 30th, 1862, that troops gathered awaiting the battle that would start the next day. Around 80,000 men. At the North was commanded by William Rosecrans, I believe. I'm not a historian, so just trying to pull this from memory, from the readings I've done of this place. And the South was up, commanded by Braxton Bragg, I want to say. There's an interesting story. They say that evening before the battle started, that the bands from each army, the North and the South, had like a battle of the bands where they played. South played like Dixie and North played Yankee Doodle, and they tried to outdo each other by how loud they got, stuff like that. And it ended. Now this is legend, you know. Stories go, and there's several people that told this story that were there, you know. So there are several accounts of this. And by the end, one of the bands, not sure which one, started playing Home Sweet Home, and the other band started to play it as well too. In the end, they were both playing the same song, and the soldiers were all singing the words to this song. And I guess it was beginning to settle in with them that was probably the last time they would hear music or sing. And that would be true for several thousand men. both sides on the battlefield here. Okay, be back. Okay, we're approaching a spot called the slaughter pen. Now by December 31st, things were not looking good for the Union Army. And as the Confederates were pushing forward, William Rosecrans, who was trying to build up defensive position, needed time. And he ordered Sheridan and I think it was Nagley to hold off the approaching Confederates. And they took up defensive positions here in this field of stone. Well, as the Confederates pushed forward, Sheridan's men were driven back, and so the commander that was in this area was surrounded by three sides, and when they tried to pull back, it was a slaughter. As they jumped up to try to run away, they were quickly picked off. And this area, there was so much death here and so much blood that was running through these rocks that soldiers described the rocks as being too slick to stand on because they were so covered with blood. And as the blood went through the cracks and stuff in the rock, other soldiers described this place as being like a slaughterhouse. So, hence the name Slaughterhouse Pen. Now, even though the high casualties in this spot, I mean, commander here, his men did hold out long enough to allow Rosecrans to fortify his positions, but it came at a high cost. Now, the Confederates, I believe, did momentarily take this spot, but that came at a cost. I mean, they lost tons and tons of men too. And so, yeah. This is supposedly one of the most haunted areas on the battlefield here. And I'm just going to kind of scope around and take a look. And be back. Now, Park Service has put these silhouettes of soldiers here. And for a while, because this did provide some good cover, it did help them hold off the Confederate Army there for a while. But they were being backed up by Sheridan, I think. I'm terrible at remembering names. I can never be a historian because I forget names. Anyways, he was getting support from him, but after his line was busted and the Confederates were encircling the commander here, don't remember his name, he was cut off by, on three sides. He was just getting hammered on three sides. So eventually, I mean, they did what they could. And they did succeed at holding off the Confederates long enough for Rosecrans to refortify his position. And that helped turn the tide of this battle, because, man, for a while, it was looking like the Confederates were going to win. Because at the beginning, Rosecrans and Bragg were both going to attack the right flank of each other's armies, because that's where it was the weakest. They both had like similar battle plans. And but Bragg struck first. He came around and hit the Union Army's right flank. And because of, they say there are a lot of incompetent commanders on that area that were commanding the cavalries, that area, that they fell pretty quickly. And so that line fell apart pretty quick. So, I mean, those first few hours, Confederates were kicking some tail. And it looked like they were going to pull it off. But thanks to what the commander, his name I can't remember, I'll probably put it on like a little thing on the bottom of the video. Thanks to the sacrifice of him and his men in this spot right here, the slaughter pen, they were able to delay the Confederates long enough for Rosecrans to do what he needed. And it slowly turned the tide of the battle. What ultimately became a Union victory here. And they ended up occupying Murfreesboro following this. Now, in case you're curious, I'm holding a K2 meter. I'm kind of walking around here just to see if it picks up anything. I'll walk through so many, there should be some residual energies here from those who died here, because so many did. So I'm just kind of walking around to see if there's anything around. Not picking up anything. I did pick up a little bit at the cemetery when I was there. Some of the lights were dancing around, but I'm not getting anything here. Anyways, we'll continue to check it out. If something comes along, I'll bring you back. Okay, so I'm getting some interesting activity right in this spot. And now it's gone. Well, that was kind of... Hello? Looks like it's just walking by. If you haven't guessed by now, I'm very interested in the paranormal. This is kind of, I mean, we're out in the middle of a field. There's no kind of power lines or anything like that. And I walked through this entire field. I didn't get anything until I was just about to leave, and we're right here in this spot. Some interesting stuff happening here. Okay, I'm going to check this out a little bit. I'll be back. Aside from the blips on the K2 meter, I didn't detect any other signs of activity in the slaughter pen, but just standing in the middle of where so many men gave their lives was sobering. It was surreal. I could picture in my thoughts the carnage that took place here. It was quite sad. Okay. Right here in this field is where the Confederate Army came out of the trees to push their advantage on the north. But the Union, you had used the time, Rosecrans had used the time that the men sacrificed over on at the slaughter pen. He used the time that they bought him to fortify his position over there. There's a road there, it's the Nashville Pike. And that's where their supply line was. Just bringing them ammo and everything else. So the Union Army emerged here, and they knew they could just get, you see that building over there, the Nashville Pike is just beyond that. But Rosecrans had set up his artillery, his cannons, in like a horseshoe shape just beyond over there. And so when the Confederates came out, they didn't have any kind of cannon support. It was just men, and they were slaughtered, and they were cut down. Every wave of attack that they tried to push against the Union was quickly cut down by the Union artillery and the Union armies. What I find interesting, I was never a big Civil War person until my visit to Gettysburg last summer. But, the fighting that these men did, they didn't have drones, they didn't have tanks, they didn't have any of the stuff that modern armies use. The power of the armies was basically men and their muskets. And they had some cannons, but it was mainly fought by men. And that's why the casualties in this war were so high, because their only weapon was themselves. It's just mind-boggling. Thousands died on both sides in this battle. It's pretty crazy. Anyways, be back. There are times when the park offers ranger tours, but there were none today, likely because of the weather. There was only a handful of people here, so I was my own tour guide, and that was cool. I'd researched quite a bit before our visit, so I was able to really appreciate each stop, and I was able to go at my own pace. What better way to spend a miserable day? In this area here is where the Pioneer Brigade fought against the Confederates that were trying to capture Nashville Pike, which is just beyond there. These weren't regular soldiers, they were like carpenters and machinists or whatever in their civilian life. They weren't really fighting men. They were like the support for the armies. And Rosecrans pricked 2 men from each of these units to stand and fight. They didn't know whether they would or not because they weren't trained soldiers. But they fought and held the Confederates that continued to try and break into the Union lines, which were all along here. Again, I'm not exact on any of this because this isn't something that I study. I don't Having spent hours and hours on this kind of stuff, and historians will probably point out everywhere that I'm wrong. But they actually held out and helped to hold off Confederates as they were coming through out of the trees in this area here. Pretty cool. Shall return. Okay, this is the site of the Round Forest, where William Hazen and his brigade, approximately 1,800 people, men, soldiers, held off wave after wave of Confederate onslaughts, and he was the only one that held his line through that December 31st day of fighting. The carnage was so great, they say, that this area here was known as Hell's Half Acre. And over here that I'm walking toward, Hazen's men built this monument right here, and is the oldest remaining and standing Civil War monument. So William Hazen and his men actually built this following the battle to commemorate those who, gave their lives here at Stones River. So we're going to check this out. A lot of the writing is faded on the stonework here. Oh, here's what they got a sign here telling you what it says. Hazen's Brigade. Whoa. Hazen's Brigade, to the memory of its soldiers who fell at Stones River, December 31st, 1862. Their faces toward heaven, their feet to the foe. And there goes the train. Okay, well, I'll just go around here. Weather description above, carved in 1863. Veterans of Shiloh have left a deathless heritage of fame upon this field of Stone River. Okay, I'm gonna shut this off until the train is gone. Okay, train is gone. Probably hear me now. I guess these are the stones of those who fell here. A lot of these I cannot read. Snyder, Lenhart. It's really interesting that these men built this. Oh. So I guess Hazen did not survive this. It's got the names of a lot of those that fell here. Ohio Infantry, Ohio Infantry. Interesting. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so this is the location. This is McFadden Farm. This is the location of the final battle, where the final battle took place of Stones River battle, or whatever you call it, engagement. So on January 2nd, I believe, when General Bragg of the Confederate Army wanted to retake this position because he was afraid of Union cannon being able to take out his men. So he ordered his commanders to take this hill. Confederate commanders were not happy with this decision. They knew they were going to be cut down by Union cannon fire. Apparently there's a lot of animosity between the Confederate commanders and General Bragg. He was not a liked person. Anyways, they attacked, and just as those lower commanders feared, they were slaughtered. 1,800 Confederate soldiers were wiped out. Now, at the beginning, they thought they might, they started to push the Federals back, but they kept getting reinforcements, and they quickly came back and retook the hill. 1,800 Confederates died here. And the inscription on this memorial: January 2nd, 1863 at 3 p.m. There were stationed on this hill 58 cannon commanding the field across the river. As the Confederates advanced over this field, the shot and shell from these guns resulted in the loss of 1,800 killed and wounded in less than an hour. It was after this that General Bragg finally ordered his men back, and the battle was over. And a very costly Union victory. The car is open if you want to go back into it. I'm going to go check out the cemetery. So this is where it all came to an end. There's a cemetery over here I'm going to go check out. The McFadden Cemetery from the mid-1800s. Sign says it contains the graves of Samuel McFadden, Samuel Clark, and 2 unknowns. Can't even read any of the stones, actually. It's curious how much this, with all the traffic and stuff that's around here in the roads, and I can hear, even throughout the park you can hear the traffic of Murfreesboro in the background. Knowing that this was once countryside, farmland, and none of this stuff, there's stores and just beyond these trees. We're gonna go grab a bite to eat in one of those places. None of this stuff existed back then. And there, right there, is Stones River itself. You can see it down there. There's a bridge. Traffic, I think that's Thompson Lane, I think. So much carnage took place in this area. 1800 in less than an hour. Okay, be back. There are many trails that zigzag around the park where you can get a more personal feel of walking around the battlefields. I was hoping to hit some of those trails, but the unpredictable weather prevented this, especially when considering my daughter. However, I was still fascinated by the knowledge of everything that took place here. The peacefulness of these woods betray the violence and carnage that took place 180 or so years ago. It was sobering to say the least. Okay, so that's going to do it for today's little visit at the Stones River National Battlefield in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Be sure to like and subscribe and check out all our other videos. Should be back on the trail next week. And there's the battlefield itself. That's where the slaughter pen is, inside those trees. So anyways, keep your stick on the ice. And see you next time on the trail and on another one of these trail hunter road trips. Adios. We didn't get to hike, but we did make a dreary day a little brighter. Stones River National Battlefield, like Gettysburg, is as fascinating as it is sad. So much senseless death and horror took place here, it's now hallowed ground. Did the spirits of those who fell here still roam these fields? I tend to think so, and my meter gave a little support to my beliefs, but who knows? Either way, Stones River is worth a visit. So from our family to yours, we wish you health and happiness, and we'll see you all out on the trail.